Tech News Weekly is sponsored by Hover.com. Go to gfu.hover.com and get 10% off your entire purchase. FreshBooks. FreshBooks is an easy-to-use online invoicing service that saves you time, gets you paid faster, and makes you look professional. Get started completely for free at freshbooks.com. And by Audible.com. Get a free audiobook by going to audiblepodcast.com/GFQ.
Starting Tech News Weekly in 3, 2, 1.
Welcome, everybody, to Tech News Weekly on this insanely hot Friday afternoon. I'm Andrew Zarian, and this week I'm joined by a special guest, Gary from macmos.com. How you doing, Gary?
Pretty good. How you doing?
Gary is a Apple expert, and who better to have on than him this week, because it's going to be a lot of Apple news, considering with the launch of Lion, the new MacBook Air, the Mac Mini, and pretty much everything else that's going on in Apple news. You can follow Gary on Twitter at ROSENZ, RosenZ. Is that good?
Yeah.
Well, how would you say it?
I don't know. It's not to be said. It's to be typed.
Just typed. ROSENZ.
Rosens.
Okay. Rosens. Yeah. Gary runs a unbelievable site that's extremely beneficial to anybody that is new to Apple or they use a Mac. It's a bunch of tutorials on your site, which I've used a ton of times, and you're going headfirst into Lion the last week, right?
Right, and it looks like I've got enough material to go for months now just on new features of Lion.
Well, what is it? 250 new features, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Can include all the minor ones.
So let's talk about this first. It was expected. People, we've seen the beta for a while, and it went gold a while back, so we know what it looks like, but not too many people had a hands-on experience with it. Were you doing the beta test at all?
I am a developer, and developers had access to Lion for a while, so you can infer from that.
Now, you know what I want to ask as a developer? The final build, was it different at all from what they released?
Typically, Gold Master builds are almost identical.
Okay.
I mean, in the software world, when you get to your final beta and your Gold Master, you're not adding any more features. You can put a feature freeze on it. So it's just fixing bugs and speeding things up, optimizing, that kind of thing. So the rumor mills have been reporting online. Anything they've said over the last couple of months pretty much was right on, because they were getting their information from developers who were spilling the beans. So
one thing I did not expect was the opposite scrolling. And have you disabled yours as a Power Mac user? Have you changed yours back to the way it was?
No, because you know what? My cross training with the iPad and iPhone has kind of gotten me into the mode where I can think either way. It's like ambidextrous with the scrolling. So I really didn't have any problem at all trying to do it. Strangely enough, now that I'm doing it mostly with Lion and on the iOS devices. When I'm using Snow Leopard, which I have to occasionally, that now I'm having a little trouble. I'm forgetting that it's the other way.
Yeah, I took it off, and I'm going to be putting it back on, and I'm going to end up having to do another format because I want to do a clean install. Mm-hmm. And this is a big question, and
yes.
we'll go ahead first because a lot of my viewers, I got a bunch of questions for you, and many of them ask, how do you do a clean install?
Right. Well, actually, I've been getting this question a ton as well, and it surprises me. Because I tell people, don't do a clean install.
Oh, you tell them don't?
I haven't done a clean install of OS X since Jaguar, I think.
Okay.
My install now is actually using Migration Assistant and upgrades has been the same, and all the way back for 5, 6, 7 years. So definitely don't do a clean install unless you're like a developer who wants to do something special with a partition, or you've got a machine you completely want to revamp, something like that. For most people, 99% of people, just run the Lion installer. It does kind of a clean install. It replaces Snow Leopard with Lion, leaves all the rest of your stuff there. Now, the advantage of doing a clean install would be old preference files, like maybe for applications you're not using anymore, they would be gone. Maybe fonts and things that you're not using anymore would be gone. So a little minor, advantage. major disadvantage is now you have to reinstall all your apps. So, if you've had stuff like from Adobe or whatever, you got to get those disks out, get those installers out. There's going to be applications you forgot, oh, I forgot I use this all the time, and where's that installer? And then your preferences are all going to be gone. So, things like an FTP program we were talking about, well, your saved, locations will be gone. And you could be months later and still be hitting things that's like, oh, this must have gotten wiped in that clean install I did.
See, I'm a fairly new user to the Mac world. The last 3 years I've become a Mac user, and I'm still a Windows user. I mean, I've been getting called a fanboy the last couple of weeks because I've been really tweeting about this, and I've been in this Twitter battle with people saying, listen, I use both. I'm in a mixed environment. 50% of the time I'm using my Mac, 50% of the time I'm using Windows, and I find that both are really good at this point, and they both have strong cases that there might be better. But in the end, it's all equal. They're all the same. The Mac is a lot prettier, in my opinion, and the OS is a little bit more streamlined.
Mm-hmm.
With that said, I am used to never doing an upgrade, always doing a clean install. So even with the Mac, even with Snow Leopard, from Leopard I went to Snow Leopard, from Snow Leopard to Tiger, to Lion, I've always done a clean install. And with this, how I ended up doing it in my version of the clean install was just do a clean install of Snow Leopard, then just put Lion on top.
Yeah, you could do that. You could also create a DVD. There's tons of sites out there that tell you. It's basically just downloading Lion, finding the package, opening it up, and there's a disk image there, and you could just burn that to
it's an actual it's a DMG file, or
I don't know what it is. An image, it's a disk image of some sort. It might be ISO, DMG, I forget. I actually did it once just to see what it was like. But the thing is that I think it's that for 99% of the users, you shouldn't worry about it. Just run the installer. It'll take care of things for you. The Snow Leopard installer did the same thing too. The Snow Leopard installer was the one that really proved itself that you don't need to install was not needed.
Yeah, it kind of hit it, right? It put it away. Yeah. You had to actually go into utilities and format the disk to do it.
Well, yeah, but Snow Leopard did such a good job as a regular installer.
Yeah.
That without it cleaned up your system. People were reporting all over the place that they had Leopard and they installed Snow Leopard and everything sped up. And, the system was smaller and everything like that. It did a really good job of getting rid of things it didn't need. And Lion installer is just the same way. Now, in August, of course, Apple's going to have a flash drive out you can buy for $69 that, will give you something you can, boot from and then install. And presumably also a path for people to go directly from Leopard to Lion if they want to. They just get this flash disk, and, in a few weeks, we should be able to pick that up.
Yeah, listen, it's interesting that they've totally eliminated the optical drive, right? They're saying with them just going over to a flash stick, they're saying, listen, you don't need an optical drive anymore, and that kind of points you where Apple is kind of headed with the next couple of years. This is the end of the CD for them and the DVD for them.
Oh, absolutely. The new MacBook Airs, of course, MacBook Airs never had it.
Yeah.
The new Mac Mini don't have an optical drive, so it's really clear that the direction Apple's headed in is no optical drives. And to tell you the truth, I'm a super power user of computers. Developer, I create media, I do all this stuff. Rarely do I ever use an optical drive. So rarely. I actually put an optical drive put a disk in to an old laptop to install a game, and was surprised to find a year later it was in there, and I'd forgotten and I'd stuck it in there. I hadn't used the optical drive in a year.
Yeah, see, that's the interesting. And well, the optical drive on the Macs are pretty terrifying for anybody that's used it for the first time with the grinding sound that they make. It's a little strange to me.
Oh yeah,
that clicking. I never experienced that before, and I thought I did something wrong the first time I put a CD in there.
Oh, just the loaders, they
it was weird
sound in the tray.
Yeah, the noise was a little strange the first time I ever used a Mac, but. So Lion is out. Give me your opinion on Lion. What do you think of it so far?
Well, I love it. There's a lot of things that will make me more productive, and I don't know, just make it easier to get to things, make it easier to use things. And mission control for me is a really big feature that I like. I was never a big user of expose and spaces, which mission control kind of replaces. But mission control, you combine it with the full screen apps. And having this idea of a space, and you've got your desktop there, and then the next space has the mail, and the next space has Safari in it, and you can just basically flip between them. It's very much like using the iPad except better, because those things, you really do get the feeling those things are all running and you can drag and drop between them. And whereas an iPad, it feels like it's a different iPad for each screen. Here, you feel like this continuous flow of spaces that you can move between.
and you have 2 desktops. I mean, that's the amazing thing of it. And for people who,
as many as you want, actually.
As many as you want, yeah. So for people who have not used the Mac, if you go into this mission control, which it's F3, you could add as many desktops as possible. So you could have, right now I have 2 desktops. I have a clean one, and I have like my personal one, and I have everything going on for the network. So, and you could flip right back with the 3-finger scroll kind of doohickey amongst the desktops, and I think that's amazing. It's really interesting.
And a desktop could be just Mail, like Mail as a full screen takes over everything, desktop, and the same thing for just about any application. You can have, say, iMovie or Final Cut or something as like the entire screen. So that screen doesn't have icons, doesn't have other windows, doesn't have the dock at the bottom. It's just that application. But the next one may have a bunch of windows from the Finder, may have like your address book and a bunch of stuff. So you can really kind of mix them around and use them however it's best for you.
What do you think of the Launchpad?
Launchpad is just another way to launch applications, and there's so many ways to do it on Mac. I think it's not for everybody. It's not for someone like me.
Who is it for? See, that's what I wonder, because...
I can tell you what it's for. I think I still get questions from people that say, well, how do I want to do this? And I say, well, use this application. And they say, I don't have that. I'm like, yeah, that's on every Mac. Well, it's not there. I'm like, well, look in your applications folder. What's an applications folder? The dock to them at the bottom, that's where their applications are. And if it's not there, they don't know how to get to it. Having this alternate interface that can list a ton of apps rather than just the limited space at the bottom of the dock, that's a big deal for normal users. So they never have to go to the applications folder now. They can go to the dock for their main applications, go to Launchpad, and they've got all of their applications.
Automatically, I've noticed, I just got a MacBook Pro because I destroyed my MacBook. I spilt water on it, Gary, and you might say that I'm an idiot.
Now, original MacBook. So
yeah, and it's gone. So I spilled water on my MacBook. I opened it up. I dried it. Then I noticed that there was a cut in the wiring for the fan.
Oh, yeah?
So I repaired it, and as I repaired it, I broke the clip that connects to the motherboard. So I gave up. I said, you know what? I need to get a new one anyway. I could fix that at any time. And I bought a new Mac. I bought a MacBook Pro. I bought an i7.
Yeah.
On Snow Leopard, it was good. But on Lion, it's so much faster on Lion. And did they do any optimization for the i7, the new Sandy Bridge processor that they did not have in the previous one?
I have to think so. I mean, they try to do that as part of all the OS upgrades, right? Everyone's gotten faster, so they optimize more. When Snow Leopard came out, there were no i5, i7 processors for the Mac. I mean, it just wasn't there. They didn't have any. So, this is the first operating system where they've had that as a primary hardware platform. So I imagine there's been a lot of optimization for that. But then I think there's just stuff in there that would be faster even on Core 2 Duos. I mean, they're just, they've changed things, they sped things up, and they try to make it better.
I mean, this is an exact preview into where Apple is headed with their modern OS. How do you see the evolution going? Do you feel that going to this iOS type environment will be the answer to the modern OS, or do you think it should be kind of separated and you should have the iOS environment on iOS devices, mobile devices, and a desktop should be a desktop?
Yeah, well, I see it going to the standard and pro, and what we, the computer OS, Lion, that's the pro OS going forward, and iOS, and Android will be the kind of standard OS. So you can have these, the pro level ones will be, for the people that still want computers. Yeah. And the standard ones will be for people that just want, tablets.
Yeah, I mean, people are freaking out, and I know a lot of Apple users that are not happy with this, and they're saying, well, it's going to an iOS type, it's going to that kind of OS, but I don't get that. I don't get that feel. I just think that they've integrated a couple things, and they've taken inspiration from iOS and put it in OS X. But yeah, I've
tried to figure out, of all these features that are iOS-like, which ones are required. Like, if I wanted to ignore the whole mission control thing, I could just have one desktop. If I wanted to ignore the gestures, I could do everything with a keyboard or with clicking somewhere. all the stuff is like optional. It's additional functionality. They didn't force you really into anything if it's not how you want to use it. So
Well,
there's
they
still a ton
added
of
they added the gestures, but you don't have to use it. You're right. I turned some of it off. I changed. You could with the Mac, you could change the gestures. You could change the scrolling. So you have the option to do that.
Yeah, definitely. And you can. There's not a single gesture that's really needed to use the Mac at all.
Yeah. I don't know. I find it fascinating, but I absolutely I love the OS. I think it's a lot better. I don't have as much memory leak with some software. Firefox was not running that great for me for a while on Snow Leopard, and I haven't noticed a memory issue with that. It's a lot quicker and a lot smoother, but it's a week in, so this is totally clean. I'm waiting to base my opinion, a month from now, when I've been using it and see, the little things here and there. At the same time, the Mac, they've changed their lineup to the in the Apple Store. No more white MacBooks. It's over.
Right. Yeah. And it makes sense. It was rumored before.
Yeah.
I mean, the white MacBook was $1,000, and at the slowest processor, it was basically the really low end of everything. The MacBook Pro, the 13-inch model, was basically $200 more, and you got a lot more power out of it and a nice aluminum case. And the MacBook Air, that came in at $1,000 too, and you had a very similar design, no optical drive, but much lighter. So the question came is like, why do you really want the white MacBook? Like, what advantage does it have? And I bought a low-end MacBook last year, but I went with the low-end MacBook Pro because it just did not seem to make sense to save just a few dollars and lose all that. So I think now the new MacBook Air, which I have one right here, this is the 11-inch MacBook Air, and it is the replacement really. The low end of this is $1,000. So
it's a Sandy Bridge processor. It's a great processor inside.
Yeah, it's fantastic. This has got an i5, the one I've got, and I don't know if you're like a customer for the MacBook, like an educational customer. Say you're a college student, starting in the fall. That's a perfect machine. The thing is so light, and it's really powerful in there. Why would you get a MacBook over that, the same price?
I don't know. See, I wonder what the target was with when they released the Air. The Air was not a low end laptop, right? We're not talking about a low end laptop. We're talking. It was kind of high end. It was expensive for what it was. Right. It wasn't a cheap laptop, but it was underpowered. So I can understand how a lot of people. It was all the look. It wasn't anything special when it came to the process. But now with an i5, you could even get an i7 inside of it. You're paying. It's not cheap, but it's super thin. I mean, you're paying for something that's a premium device.
Yeah, I mean, they totally transformed it from this, this luxury item. Really, the original one was $1,800, and I mean, it was a luxury item. I didn't see the point. But this one for $1,000 it's such a different thing. It's not quite in competition with the netbooks. But because they come in at $300-$400 for a decent one, but it's a lot more powerful, does a lot more, and it's a full-on Mac. It's not running some dumbed-down system. It's the real thing.
So who do you think the target for the? I mean, the MacBook Pro, I guess, is everybody, right? But who's buying the Airs now? Who are they targeting? Are they targeting the white MacBook user, or are they targeting still a premium type device?
No, I don't think they're targeting premium at all anymore. I mean, I think education definitely. If I was a student, I wish I could go back in time and be a student and have an Air. It would have been so easy. But also, just I think casual users. I mean, people they fall in love with the design. So I was at the Apple Store yesterday, and I mean, there's just a crowd of people around the MacBook Airs, and I bought mine, and I think I was 8th in line to buy an Air. And people just see those things and say, "Ooh." I want how much? $1,000, $1,200, whatever.
Well, $1,000. I'm looking at it right now, right? $1,000. Yeah. Apple has, they've done something interesting, and Apple has totally ignored the i3. Mm-hmm. And in my opinion, I think that the reasoning for that is to kind of eliminate that stigma that they're using the lowest end CPU on these devices. Apple did not go to the i3, and I was surprised that they never went to the i3. They were using those Core 2 Duos for a while in the MacBooks, and I guess this is why, because they're skipping the i3. They're going to an i5 with the option of an i7, so you could get, starting at $1,000, and it goes up to $1,500, $1,600, which is not that crazy when you're buying a device like this.
And remember, these all have SSDs in them. I mean, all of them. So, that's pretty incredible to get a machine that's got an SSD. It'll boot up so fast, super fast disk access, and they also have the Thunderbolt ports. They have this incredible port, which is the equivalent, really, to an extension card. I mean, it plugs right into the central bus. So, plugging into really fast drives, video sources, all sorts of things like that. It's all possible. Even on this $1,000 machine, you can do it.
At what point do you feel that the white MacBook was useless in a sense? I mean, I know people bought it, but I can't. From all the people around me that have been buying Macs, I cannot think of one person in the last 2 years to buy, since the aluminum bodies, to buy a white MacBook.
Yeah, I mean, when they came out with the $1,200 MacBook Pro last year, I think that was when I thought it was kind of crazy for anybody to buy it. You still have people doing it. You still have people that, no matter what, they were watching every penny, and they wanted to get just the cheapest Mac they could, so they would still have a Mac. And I think in the educational market too, I think they had some better deals. So I think there was a little bit more of a price gap.
That's something I was going to ask you. Are they killing it all around? I mean, what are they going to do with the current stock? Because I'm sure that there's plenty to go around. I
don't know. Apple, for computers, Apple doesn't keep much current stock.
Yeah.
That's why you hear these rumors about things going out of stock just before they actually update it. Like, I think Apple would actually do the thing if they still had 5,000 in stock. They wouldn't have announced it, that it was going out for another month until they really did run out of stock. You don't hear that much. I mean, I'm sure they distribute a few extras here and there, and they have said that they're still selling some in educational markets. So I was
about to say that. Yeah, are they going to do what they did with the eMacs, where they're going to still supply to educational markets and probably overseas too? I read that overseas is still going to carry it.
Right. Well, maybe that's where their extra inventory. Maybe. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure they're not going to manufacture a single one.
I mean, it's an interesting move because when you look at them, they don't have a large product line. The product line is pretty small when it comes to the computing. You have 2 laptops.
Yeah.
And you have the Mac Pro. Let's take it out of the equation, and then you have two desktops, and that's all they really need at this point.
Right, and they've got a couple iPods, an iPhone, and an iPad, and this company is about to take over as the largest company in the world. It's only $60 billion behind ExxonMobil, and will be the largest company in the world with that small of a product line.
Yeah,
isn't that interesting?
I try to stay in the middle when it comes to things, but I think this OS is really well done.
Mm-hmm.
It's a really well done OS, and I have not found anything that I dislike about it. And even though some people are complaining about the gestures, but you don't need to use it. You're absolutely right in that sense. You don't need to use the gestures. I want to move on to the Mac Mini. People said the Mac Mini was dead.
It's the machine that everybody likes to say is dead, but they haven't been talking too much about it being dead recently because I think people got tired of that. They realized it was going to stick around. And especially getting rid of the server product and saying that the Mac Mini was now their server, then that kind of said, well, now they can't get rid of it because they need to have some sort of server out there. And this new one is, I mean, it's pretty good. They dropped the price down $100 again, so the lowest priced Mac is now back down to $600, I think.
Yeah, and it was originally, was it $499 or $599? Then they raised it by $100.
Yeah, they was $599, and then for a while we had only $699 was the lowest. And now you've got a $599 one again.
Yeah.
And they got rid of the optical drive, but they added that Thunderbolt. And actually, if you look at the back of the Mac Mini, it's filled with ports. So it's not like, oh, we created this simple machine and there's just a couple little ports on it. It's filled. FireWire ports, USB ports. It's got the Thunderbolt port. It's got audio. I mean, it's got HDMI. And it's the Mac with the HDMI port. So it's a really interesting machine.
No, it is, and I like it. I unfortunately I have no use for it, but it is interesting, and you could even get that in the i7 as well now. So that's good too.
Yeah, a lot of options for that. Yeah.
Let's talk about the future of these devices. Now, iOS 5. I'm sure you've been testing it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
if you can't talk about it, say I can't talk about it.
I really can't say much about it. No.
Okay.
Only what other people reported. But
and it's reported that it's coming out in the fall.
Yeah, they said sometime in the fall. They have no specific release date for it, and they've told us a little bit about some of the features, but it's Not too much yet. Everybody's been obsessed with Lion, so there hasn't been too much reporting or too many leaks of iOS 5. I think it's a little too early, too.
A lot of the viewers have been asking, do you, and because you are a Mac expert, do you feel that we're going to get a 6-month cycle for these devices, or are they going to stick to a year? In your opinion, of course.
A year, I think. I mean, we're going longer than a year now with the iPhone.
Yeah, because now they're saying September, a new iPhone, which I highly doubt. I don't think we're going to see a new iPhone. They have to make it a year cycle.
Yeah, I would be really surprised if they didn't come out with something. It may not be the iPhone 5. It may be just like a new configuration, just something to spur holiday sales of the iPhone, to make people think that, oh, I should hold out and wait maybe January. They'll come out with something that will make everybody feel confident that they can go ahead and get one as a Christmas present.
I mean, the truth is they're kind of missing that market, right? They're kind of, I mean, they're selling a ton of them, but it's not a new device for either one of them, the iPad and the iPhone. It's not a new device when fourth quarter comes. So if they move it to, third quarter release, late third quarter release, their holiday sales will, go sky high. But then you're going to have to piss somebody off at one point.
Oh, yeah.
And that's the thing.
I think engineering might be driving the boat here because, that is the only thing I can think of why they're moving things around and being so indefinite about when a new one's going to come out. I mean, we've got the whole 4G issue, with like people saying, well, I want an iPhone with 4G. And, well, the truth is that so many people in America don't have 4G in their area. And I don't think Steve Jobs wants to come out, show the iPhone, and then come and say, oh, and by the way, it's got 4G, and then everybody find out I can't use 4G because it's not in my city.
Well, also another thing is it doesn't make sense for Apple to be putting out two separate devices, a GSM and a CDMA, so they're probably going to use that new Qualcomm chipset.
I think they're going to try at least. I mean, to put something together, just a single one, and it's universal.
I mean, it doesn't really make sense for them to make two separate ones, right? It's
no, but I mean, if they have to, they will. They sell enough of them that they don't. The economics is there that if they have to support several different versions, they could do it. I mean, they're still going to make a ton of money doing it. So I think they'll just go whatever way is the smartest.
So I want to talk about the patent issue with HTC, if you know a little bit about it. Do you feel that I'm sorry, what was that?
I don't know too much about it.
Okay, but do you feel that these patents that they're holding, and a lot of these companies, and you're seeing it left and right, that we're seeing these patent lawsuits, how does that affect someone like Android, which Apple owns more than one patent that they're using at this point in the Android OS. Where do you see this going? Do you feel that they're just going to constantly be fighting it and changing and having workarounds and licensing agreements, or do you think at one point they're going to say no, you cannot have they're going to just throw the patent out? Because they're very specific. They're very infrastructure related patents.
Yeah. I don't know too much about those specifically, but it is getting kind of crazy with all the patent wars going on. And it's just part of business. Multi-billion-dollar companies like Apple, Google, Microsoft, and all these patents that they're just going to have to deal with the patent trolls. They're going to have to deal with the patent holding companies, and they're going to have to license them. But I think they'll try to get some thrown out when they can, and other ones they'll just end up paying the licensing fee, and as just part of the price of doing business.
It's interesting how that's a whole separate part of the game. You develop, you make it good, and then you start worrying that did I infringe on their patent at this point?
Oh yeah, and people just have been filing patents now for the last 20 years, just trying to make money off the patents. So and particularly in the software patent.
Well, somebody owns a patent to to podcasting.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That came out a couple of years ago where it's somebody owns it, and if he wanted, technically he could change the term.
Right. And you've also got, the big companies patent things just to protect themselves. So they'll patent ridiculous things without the intention of actually ever suing anybody. It's just they don't want to be sued themselves. They want to be able to say, no, we've got the patent on that. We're good.
It's fascinating. It really is how they're doing it. I wanted to ask you this, and a viewer sent the question: why haven't we seen a Launchpad button? If with the new Mac Pro line, couldn't they have just done something with a new button that does both?
Well, let's see.
People are kind of confused.
Like a button on the keyboard?
Yeah, people are confused that we don't have a Launchpad button. This just came. I got.
Well, I got news for you. There is one on the new MacBook Air.
Really? Where? Oh,
Yeah.
it's a specific button.
Yep. It's the alternate for the F4.
Okay, so it's an alternate for the F4. Okay.
Yeah, so I'm not sure, like if how that translates on older keyboards, but yeah, the new keyboard on the MacBook Air, and the MacBook Air is the first, Mac to come out with Lion pre-installed, but at least that has a keyboard.
Yeah.
And so yeah, there's new configuration at the top of the MacBook Air. It has a launchpad button, and it also has no eject button because there's nothing to eject. There's no optical drive. Instead, it has a power button on the keyboard. So the upper right is a power button. The eject key was actually kind of a power button. You could do control and command with the eject key and access different power functions. So it kind of makes sense.
Yeah, I'm looking at my keyboard now and I'm seeing it's the dashboard button on mine. No, yeah, it is dashboard.
Yeah, so dashboard is now part of mission control. It's a screen all the way to the left. And dashboard is actually F3. Well, let me see what F3 does.
Do you use
F3
dashboard?
F3 is mission control. F4 is launchpad. So
And then F5 and F6 are the LED on the lights on the keys.
F5 and F6 are brightness for the LED, and for the keyboard.
Yeah, keyboard.
For brightness, and F1 and F2 are still screen brightness. F7 through F12 are rewind fast, port fast, play and volume controls for iTunes, and then where F13 would be. There isn't an F13, is that new power button. And it brings up a little dialogue that says, what do you want to do? Shut down, restart, that kind of thing.
So one thing that Apple did with this was release it exclusively in their Mac store.
Yeah.
In the App Store. Now, this was an interesting move. I've not seen, other than Linux, the big one. Microsoft has never done this. Why was this their move? Why did they say, okay, we're going to put it on the store exclusively, at least for the first month or so?
Well, I mean, it's not just for Lion; it's for everything, right?
Yeah, for everything.
Off a bunch of boxes before, and at the same time Lion was released, they pulled boxes of a whole bunch of software. I'm not sure if they actually even have any software on the shelves anymore. I should have looked for that in the Apple Store the other day, because a whole bunch of stuff went to software distribution only. So, I mean, it saves. First of all, cuts out the middleman. All the stores, even their own stores, it cuts them out. But there's an expense to that, and it allows them to distribute the software very easily. Updates are handled through the Mac App Store as well. Gives them a lot of control over the just software distribution.
But I mean, this is an OS. It's not. We're not talking about iLife. We're talking about an operating system that's downloadable, and that's the only way that you could get it currently.
I know. It just basically shows they could do anything with the software downloads, right? They did the extreme almost as one of the first things. So here's the entire OS. It's a software download.
Well, I'm glad that it worked, because a lot of people were expecting it to fail. I'm not going to be able to download it. I'm not going to be able to download it. I downloaded mine 9 o'clock in the morning. Mm-hmm. I got up. I saw it was out. I hit download. I went to the kitchen to make some coffee because I thought it would take a while, because I was expecting the service to be bombarded. And it was done within 2 minutes.
Wow, that's great.
About let's say 4 minutes, I finished the download.
Yeah.
So that means I got full speed on my Fios, and that means the servers were able to handle it. I had no issues with it. It was too easy almost, because I'm so used to, especially when there's a release for the iPhone, a 500 megabyte download to take forever.
Well, there's caching that goes on. So you're on Verizon Fios there, so there's caching that takes place. And how much you want to bet that somebody from Apple was talking to somebody from Verizon the week before and made sure that it was ready, cached on all Verizon servers. And the same thing with AT&T, and the same thing with, Quest, and the same thing with Comcast and everything. They, and it's in their own interest to help Apple out, because otherwise they're going to have trouble serving it up.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I didn't even think of that. I didn't even think that they would be caching it directly.
Well, yeah, and there's services that out there that specifically, that's their business, is making sure large downloads are cached throughout the world, throughout the the United States, and they work on both ends with a big provider like Verizon, and with somebody distributing something like Apple. So I'm sure there's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes that we don't really need to know about that just made that download faster.
Yeah, it was quite easy. Now the OS wars get really interesting now, because Apple has decided, at least for now, this, since the beginning of OS X, I guess since Tiger, this has kind of been the feel and look of the Mac OS. Mm-hmm. The last couple OSs have been kind of conformed into the same thing. It hasn't been revolutionary, but an evolutionary feel to them, and they just improve every release. Windows is doing something totally different. Windows is, just going out there and redesigning the way that we do, Windows computing. Yes, you're going to be able to go into classic mode, and yes, you don't need to use that UI, but this is now going to be the default UI. This tiled type environment is the UI. It's weird. It's strange to say this, but it seems like Apple is now the traditional desktop OS when you're going into the OS wars.
Yeah.
Have you taken a look at Windows? What do you think of that operating system?
I mean, it seems risky, and I wouldn't be surprised if when Windows 8 finally comes out, if it's not as extreme. It just seems risky. I was talking to somebody the other day who was forced to go from Windows XP to Windows 7 overnight because of a computer crash, and they just like everything's completely totally different. And I'm like, between XP and 7,
yeah.
Pretty much seems the same to me, but to them it was completely different.
There's a lot of people. There's a huge group of people that use XP, and they absolutely love XP, and they hate everything after that. They went to Vista, and they were disgusted by Vista, so they went back to XP, and they stood there and they stayed there, and they have no inkling to go to 7. And when they did go to 7, they hated it. And I got a bunch of emails when we had a Windows 7 launch party, we had a Microsoft sponsored thing, and so I was really behind Windows 7, and we installed it on all our machines. We did it live, and I've had no issues. I absolutely love 7, and it's 1,000 times better than what XP was.
It's the best Windows ever.
It is. In reality, it is. It's a solid. It's what Windows should have been 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I praise 7 because I have no issues with it. I get emails constantly saying you're an idiot. You don't know what you're talking about. Windows 7 sucks. It doesn't run on my computer. It's slow on my computer. This is not working. These drivers aren't compatible. And then I learned that they're running it on a 10-year-old machine.
Yeah.
They're running it on a Pentium 4. They're running it on older machines. And I keep telling them, like, listen, it's not going to... A 10-year-old machine is not going to run it perfectly.
Right.
It's not designed. I mean, it was 10 years ago. It was designed to run on some other software. Now this is out. This is doing the best that it can. And at one point... You're going to have to say, you know what, maybe it's me. And this is the problem that Microsoft is constantly facing. It's legacy. It's a lot of people that are holding on to older devices, and they're not letting go. With Apple, they don't really have that issue, right? Because they flipped the switch quite a few years ago, and they said, well, sorry, we're not supporting it. And they did it again when they went to the Intel base. And it seems like they have a larger turnaround. Apple seems to have like a 3 to 4 year cycle where people, after 3 or 4 years, they end up getting another one. When Microsoft, there are people that hold off, and they hold off for 10 years. I got an email from a viewer saying, 7 doesn't work for me. My RAM is not working right. I have system crashes. My hard drive is not working right. And it turns out that they're using a 10-year-old machine with a gig of RAM. It's not going to work right. When Windows 8 comes out, that's it's even going to be worse. But I think this is an interesting move by Microsoft because they're kind of saying, listen, at one point we have to move. We have to leave this legacy. But someone like me that's a power user for Windows, I can't do that. I don't want that UI. And the only thing I'm thinking is, well, yeah, you're going to be able to turn off the UI, and that's great. But how many people are not going to know to turn off that UI? How many corporate environments are not going to get the enterprise version, and they're going to go and they're going to install it on a machine, they're going to start freaking out? Or how about when they buy a computer and it's this operating system that they've never seen? It's going to be fascinating, and I'm really curious to see what happens with the evolution of OS and what they keep doing. Apple has kind of said, well, this is what we're doing. And we know what Apple's planning on doing with their OS. I guess more cloud integration and more of iOS integration to kind of make it feel the same. But Microsoft is kind of saying, well, no, we're just throwing everything out the window, and this is what we're doing.
Right. Well, you know what surprised me a lot from the questions I'm getting? I'm getting questions from people that makes it obvious they've never upgraded an operating system, right? They were on Windows for a long time, but they bought a computer that had Windows on it. They never updated it. So whatever one they had when they bought it was the one they stuck with until the day they switched to a Mac. That's
where they stuck with it.
And they had, Tiger, Leopard, whatever it was, and they've stuck with this entire time. And for whatever reason, the information's finally gotten to them that there are these upgrades, these OS upgrades. They didn't hear about Snow Leopard upgrade. They didn't, hear about maybe the one before that. But for some reason, people are covering Lion more. And now they've heard, oh, you can upgrade your OS. What's this about? And they're asking me such a simple thing as, when I install Lion, will it delete all of my documents and apps?
Yeah.
And I'm like,
It pretty much says no.
Operating system installs don't do that. But
Yeah.
and that tells me they've never done an operating
Yeah.
system install before.
Well, it's not a common thing in the Windows world. Windows does not sell, and you know, contrary to what people think, people don't go around upgrading Windows.
Right,
Now,
they don't,
we
yeah.
we do because we're enthusiasts and we're out of our minds and we want the newest thing. But the soccer mom in the Midwest that has, you know, a Sony laptop is not waiting for Windows 8 to come out to upgrade. So
No.
it's a scary thing. That process is not friendly.
Right.
We don't upgrade, so we don't really sell OSs. We sell computers because it's so cheap to buy a computer. You say, okay, you know what? The OS is going to cost me $200, $150, whatever. For $150 more, I could go buy a brand new computer.
Yeah.
And that's what people do in the Windows world. For Mac, it's totally different. So this is a strange thing for anybody that is doing the first time upgrade.
Right. They have no concept of what it's about or whether they should be doing it or not.
It's really not an OS upgrade, and I tell this, and I've been telling this to people. You're not wiping anything out. I mean, you do have the option if you wipe everything out, or you reinstall. I mean, you can, but it's almost like a Windows upgrade, like a security upgrade, or you know, when Apple releases their latest version. It's a very simple thing. You just follow the steps and it does it, and you're done. You really don't have to deal with the hoopla of formatting the hard drive and partitioning the hard drive and all that stuff.
Yeah, I mean that's ancient history, that kind of thing.
I kind of like it though. I'll tell you, Gary. I like that difficult process. I miss the days before SATA was supported in the OS and the drivers were there, and if you had a SATA drive, you had to do this whole song and dance to get it to recognize the hard drive. Mm-hmm. I miss the struggle. It's almost like what it was like Stockholm syndrome.
Yeah, no, I actually had to 2 months ago. I had to do it. I sold a bunch of stuff on Craigslist, some old PCs I used for game testing, and decided to clear them off. So I did just reinitialize the drive, use the original disks to install Windows on it, and it all went well until I realized I need to find the drivers for the video card that was in this machine. And it took me about 2 hours to go and find those, install those properly, so I can actually go above 640, 480 on the monitor. So it was that same experience I had to relive just this year.
Where do you see the Pro line? And I'm reading the questions, by the way. These are questions that viewers have submitted over the last week or so to me. So I'm actually, I don't know the answers to them, and Gary knows more than me about this. So I'm throwing them out there. So if you feel that they're strange questions for me to be asking, they're from the viewers. Where do you feel that the Pro line is going to go? Do you think there'll be an in-between for people who want to get into, get a Mac Pro but cannot afford, a $3,000 machine? Do you feel that they'll ever say, okay, you know what, we're going to build a tower for the real user, not the power user?
Every once in a while during their cycles, the low end Mac Pro ends up dipping down to like $2,000 or just under $2,000. Right now, it's not really there, but I could see them, depending upon the next processors they want to use, having this quad core machine that's just below it. They seem to, it's like every other update cycle, they seem to have this lower end one.
I mean, the thing has a 12-core processor. I mean, it's unbelievable.
Oh yeah, and I've got not one of those, but I've got one from 2009 Mac Pro is my machine, and it's great. There's certain advantages for somebody like me. It's just video editing, and I've got all these cards in it and everything like that.
How does it utilize all those cores? How does the software utilize it? I mean, because this is, have you installed Lion on there? I'm assuming with Lion it's going to do a better job at it.
Yeah, it will. No, unfortunately, I'm waiting for a driver update for the video card I have that takes the HDMI into it. They promised that coming out soon. So this is pretty much the only Snow Leopard machine I've got is my main one. All my laptops and other machines are up to Lion now. But yeah, it'll probably make better use of it. But already in things like Final Cut 10, I've got it's using multiple cores to render the video. There are other applications I use that just are using those multiple cores, or just simply running a few applications at once, and each one's using its own core.
That's actually, you brought up something interesting. You brought up Final Cut. People have been wanting to know what you think of the new Final Cut. A lot of upset people right now. Yeah,
it's not. I love it. I love it, but I hated Final Cut Pro. Before, so Final Cut Pro 7, the last version of that line, I hated those. I hated them. I used iMovie because in iMovie I could get my work done 10 times faster than a Final Cut. I may have not been able to put that one little special effect or that one little audio tweak, but I got my work done so much faster. Final Cut Pro X or 10 is like that. I have all that power and I can get my work done fast at the same time. So as far as I'm concerned, it's fantastic. I've read some of the complaints, and some of the complaints are things that don't affect me about, like, bringing old projects up to date and using certain things that broadcasters would use, that kind of thing. They don't affect me at all, so I'm not really missing out on anything. And a lot of the complaints are of this isn't there when it actually is, and they just simply haven't taken the time to learn the tool yet. And they jumped the gun and started commenting on it before they tried it out, really.
And what are some things you've seen in Lion that bugginess, or have you found anything that you really don't like?
What do I don't like? That's a good question.
I have not used it long enough to kind of say, well, I hate this or I don't like that.
Yeah, I mean, Launchpad is something I won't use, but I'm glad it's there. It'll help me, help other people, so it'll help me in that way. There's I'm trying to think if there's anything I don't like. I mean, basically everything from Snow Leopard is there. So, it's like if there's something I don't like, I just wouldn't use it. I wouldn't complain about it. I mean, people are complaining that front row is gone, but in the end, nobody used it.
Nobody used it. Yeah, that's the thing. It's amazing. Nobody used the stupid thing, and then now they said, okay, fine, nobody's using it. Let me take it out. People are complaining that it's gone.
Well, and one of the things Apple does is it doesn't bloat their software, right? They do take things out. They took Rosetta out for supporting PowerPC applications. They took out something like Front Row. They're not going to go and let Mac OS X just get bigger and bigger and bigger until it's this massive thing. They're trimming it. They're trimming some of the fat there as well. It's nice to see them do that. I encourage them to do that. There's a ton of alternate programs that will do what Front Row did. So if you really want some sort of media program, you can get one. And also $99 for an Apple TV. If that's what you want. Yeah,
rather than a Front Row.
Yeah, get Apple TV. I mean, it does a whole bunch of stuff, even a Mac can't do very easily. And just get a $99, piece of hardware, and instead of taking an entire, $1,000 Mac and having that attached to your TV. So
it's interesting. A lot of interesting stuff. Gary, I appreciate you coming on. We're gonna wrap it up, but it was a lot of informative stuff there, and a lot of the viewers are actually happy. I'm getting the messages right now, the DMs saying, "Oh, ask him this. Oh, that was good. He answered my question there." It's a lot of confusion when there's a new release like this. A lot of people don't know what's happening. They think it's bigger. They think it's smaller. They hear one thing and it's not true. So a lot of the questions are coming in. That's great to see that the viewers are moving to the new version. I want to remind everybody you could go to Gary's site, macmost.com. Very informative. What is the last video you put up?
The one I did today was on gestures, the Lion gestures.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now.
So Mondays is going to be about AirDrop.
You know what? I want to know about that, actually.
Oh, you want me to tell you about it?
No, save it for you. Save it for the show. Okay. Yeah, a little teaser for your stuff.
It's all in the video on Monday.
That's excellent. How long does it take you to make these?
It takes me, I don't know, about an hour or two, depending upon the topic and how much finesse I want to put on the video. I've got a very fast production process. It's episode 583 for me, so 583 5-minute videos. I've kind of got the process down.
How many times a week do you do them?
My regular schedule is Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for videos. And I have a newsletter that comes out on Thursday, and I try to blog or do something else on Tuesday, so I try to fill up the week with stuff.
That's great. That's amazing. Go to Gary's site, macmost.com. Follow Gary at ROSENZ on Twitter. We're going to be back after the show, actually. We're going to be starting a beta test of a new show here on the network. It's going to be about geeky stuff, comic books, superheroes, things like that. Rich is going to be doing it at 6:30 this afternoon, so we're launching it. We're not really launching it today, but we're starting the process of getting the hang of it, and he's going to be doing that every week on Fridays. Also go to our website, guysfromqueens.com, to get all our shows on iTunes, on Zoom, pretty much everywhere you can imagine. And you can watch live at gfqlive.tv. Remember to follow us, subscribe to us, pretty much everywhere. And we'll see you all next week on Tech News Weekly. Good night, everybody.